नमस्कार, प्रणाम, वणक्कम, सत श्री अकाल, केम छो, नमस्कारा। वेलकम टू द वर्ल्ड ऑफ सृजनी। आपका हम तहे दिल से स्वागत करते हैं। We want to bring you a wonderful subject today, a very brilliant concept introduced in the financial world. You'll be surprised how the pricing of Bitcoin raised from 0 to 35 lakhs, that is $50,000 in a very short span of time. Let's have a small historic background of how it came about into being. See, we have a coin, we have a note, be it $1, 1 rupee, $100, 100 rupee. That coin has a promise from the governor, from the government, or from a bank, from the central body of bank, which gives it its value. So it's not just a piece of currency, it's $100 because the value, the promise is there from the governor. Now, in that case, we put our trust, our value, हमारी आस्था, हमारा विश्वास रहता है कि उस मनी के पास, to that currency has a strong value. When we invest our money in that, the bank invests it further on and then gets returns. But now if they make some bad decisions, irresponsible loaning structure that results in NPA or bad debts, and who pays the price? Who's the person who gets impacted? We as investors, as depositors. Now, taking all this into consideration, how strong a bank or a central bank, a body of financial organization can have its say on the money policy, monetary policies. Why just talk about bank? Let's talk about government. Think about 2016, and we saw that the currency of 500 and 1,000 rupees was just gone in like this. It is important for politics to prevent corruption, but think about the monetary value and the trust of people on those currencies. Taking all these into consideration, there was a great man who came up with an idea, Satoshi Nakamoto. He gave an idea of a version of electronic cash that would allow payments to be sent directly from part A to part B, from party A, party B. I mean, without any third-party control, especially banks or financial organizations or government. Even government control would be very regulated on it. That's Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain. And today we are going to speak about how it came into being and what are the problems we are facing towards it. So welcome to the world of Srijani and Bitcoin. And as we discussed, we have 4 expert panelists from this domain of blockchain, crypto, and Bitcoin. First of all, I would like to introduce BVJ, who is a Silicon Valley-based serial entrepreneur with a track record of building and managing market leaders like Exodus, Ankina, Ocarina, NetMagic, Netscaler. And now he's the managing partner at Kaj Ventures, and his investments include Denali Systems, Voxy Media, Scalar, and Rakya. But besides this, I'm really interested. I'm very excited about also knowing that he's into nonprofit, and he's doing so much good work in India. For example, about Akshay Patra, they are feeding almost 1.8 million midday meals in schools. They're giving scholarships to the talented students. They're also helping treat cancer patients who are in lesser fortunate group. Having said all this, let's welcome BV Jagdish to Srijani's Bitcoin platform. Welcome, BV sir.
Thank you so much, Archana. Thank you for having me. This is you're doing an absolutely wonderful job here in educating the masses on a brand new upcoming technology, which is going to be a very revolutionary one. Especially many of your audience, I'm sure, have seen the evolution of internet over the last 15, 20 years. And Bitcoin and blockchain technology is expected to be that next big move that's going to revolutionize and change the way how we all operate, especially, that financial thing that you talked about. I guess that is where a lot of the trust issues and management issues and all of those complexities between moving money from one country to another country or make it as seamless as possible, right? With this underlying technology called the blockchain. And I'm so glad you're anchoring such a concept today on your forum to your audience. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this bright Saturday morning and evening from India. And following BVJ, we'll have Prasad Raje, who's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and a product person, basically, who's built and shipped SaaS products since the early days of internet. He currently leads product for RingCentral that delivers seamless message, video, and phone capability in a single app. Welcome, Prasad.
Thank you, Archana. It's really my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited about this discussion. There's a lot to talk about. Just to give a quick background on myself, I've been working on this, on the internet from the earliest days in 1993, starting with the earliest days of the early evolution, and I can feel the same thing happening with crypto here. But we'll jump into it a lot more as we go.
Wonderful. Looking forward. Really excited. And following Prasad Raje, we have Sunil Cherian, who's currently the CEO and co-founder of Copperwire Systems. He has spent more than 30 years in networking, security, cloud, infrastructure, and edtech building multiple Silicon Valley companies from startups to IPO and everything that comes in between. He's an author, he's an entrepreneur, angel investor, a mentor to engineering and management students, and he runs Step It Up America, which helped over 1,000 minority women get jobs in IT. Amazing. So excited to welcome Sunilji on Srijani's Bitcoin, Crypto, and Blockchain Forum.
Thank you. So excited to be here. This is going to be a fun discussion. And somebody told me a few years back that money is a social protocol. And we're going to kind of look into it and it's like, hey, why? What? This is fun. Thank you. Thank you.
That's amazingly well put and wonderfully said. So, and our last but not the least panelist would be Prithvi Rao, who is a co-founder of Zebi. Zebi is India's first blockchain crypto company and has done several enterprise and government projects. Special project. I really will be excited to talk about the Bollywood and the cricket ecosystem that he's about to create. So excited to welcome Prithvi Rao on Srijani's Blockchain, Crypto, and Bitcoin Forum.
Hey, hi Archana. Thanks so much for inviting me. I think this is a great forum, and this is the beginning of the future, as BV put it. And we're all excited to see how this will span out. And Zebi is proud to be one of the first companies building this future out, and looking forward to exciting times as we go along.
Yes, it is exciting because anything that comes new is really at times scary, full of apprehension, but also looking forward to the bright future. Like as an internet revolution, we had difficulty, but we did make it big and very big. Now, before we start the forum, can we have a few words of what are your thoughts, suggestions, queries, comments, brickbats, anything that comes to your mind? We'll start with BVJ.
Yes. Every time when a new technology comes into play, there is always going to be resistance. There is always going to be challenges. If you go back and look at the evolution of computers, I'm sure a lot of people, especially of my age, would remember very well that acceptance of computers in the modern world was actually rejected because people thought that this is going to kill the jobs. And on the contrary, as computers came into existence, it actually helped create a completely new set of applications, new skills, and ended up creating hundreds of millions of jobs across the globe. Same thing happened when internet came into play, right? There was a lot of resistance in the acceptance of that because when e-commerce came in, everybody thought that the local stores, they will all go out of business. But in reality, there exists both the mega e-commerce companies as well as the local, what you call in India as the Kirana stores. So every time when modern new technologies come in, it is not going to be accepted that easily. And I think the same thing is happening with this blockchain and Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as well. So as technology evolves, as the platform becomes easier to use, more and more applications get developed on top of this technology, then the proliferation of technologies like this will become very massive. I mean, just to give a simple example, many people would have seen this movie called The Khosla to Ghosla. This is an Anupam Kher movie where a real estate fraud of a single land or site that was allocated to this Anupam Kher was actually registered by multiple people, and the same site was sold to multiple people. That's because there was no concept of a public record where I can go and verify that the same land is being sold to multiple people. And in fact, as a matter of fact, this happened even to us in Bangalore as well, when we bought a piece of land in 86, 87. So when you have a public blockchain sort of a technology, right, which is actually one of the things that Zebi Prithvi, who is the CEO of that, which got implemented in Andhra Pradesh quite a bit during the early days, problems like this could be naturally eliminated. Nobody needs to be cheated. Nobody needs to get stressed out, right? Especially once you have put your personal savings into, buying a piece of land. And if that piece of land is already sold to someone else, it just feels like you've been completely cheated, right? And all your savings is being taken away. So that's where technologies come into play, especially the blockchain technology and especially the public blockchain kind of concepts. And I'm really upbeat over the next decade or so as to the kind of impact that this technology would make in the financial sectors, in healthcare sectors, and gaming industry, and many others that are just coming up, taking advantage of the underlying blockchain technology. So that's how I feel.
Very well said, Divijit. And we look forward to hear from Prasad Raje. Prasad, what do you think about the new technology that's coming up?
So let me explain this in the context of the internet, which everybody understands. Back in the early days of the internet, everybody felt that this was a decentralized system where anybody could put up a computer and communicate with anybody else. And TCP/IP made it possible for a common protocol to be used for servers and clients to communicate with each other. But really what happened as we evolved and we fast forwarded, there's actually been tremendous amount of centralization. Transactions, for example, for your email, right, are going through single providers. For example, Google. Transactions for your e-commerce are going through a single provider, increasingly so, like Amazon. And so there's been a lot of so-called centralization because of the nature of a central entity to kind of be the synchronization point. Now, when it comes to higher level things like finance and currencies and so on, the internet revolution didn't really address that type of thing. What crypto is doing is building on top of this ability for distributed computers to talk to each other, the fundamental nature of computers to talk over the internet, to create the fundamental new idea is decentralization in my mind. Decentralization is the fundamental new idea about cryptocurrencies, which is that you do not need any centralized agency to say that a transaction has occurred. For example, if I want to transfer to you $100, Archana, I will go to Wells Fargo Bank and say, do it. Why do we agree it happened? Because we trust Wells Fargo Bank to take out money from my account and put into your account, not into BB's account, and not take out $1,000, take out only $100, etc. Now, what this decentralization construct allows us to do is to not rely on any such entity. So the fact that this transaction occurs because we can go into the more details of that, but the outcome is that the transaction can occur without relying on any central entity. Imagine how powerful this is. We take this for granted today, but suppose you're sitting in Afghanistan today and your money is in question because who knows what the banks are going to open tomorrow. Well, guess what? If your money is sitting in cryptocurrencies, nobody in the world, no entity, no power, no upheaval, no revolution can stop you from sending you the $100 if I had, except it's not dollars, except it's the cryptocurrency, it's Bitcoin. We'll talk about that. But anyway, that's my sort of analogy to this for now.
Excellent. Well put. Presenting now, we have Prithvi sir. Prithvi, please let us know what do you think about, what's your opinion about, what's the future going to be for this financial system?
Yeah, so I'll take 2 minutes to brief why this is happening and why this has become so prevalent today. So 50 years ago, there was no internet. We all interacted only with our local shops that were there, local barbers, bakers, who were there. And it would be perfectly okay to give a 10 rupee note or a 50 rupee note to transact locally. But thanks to the internet, we now no more live in local societies. We all interact and transact globally. Okay, so the interaction was always easy with the internet. It was always easy to talk to people in India, to talk to anyone across the world. But it became more and more difficult to transact. So to do business, it became a very big challenge, because you could do many things over the internet but not transact. And that's actually the fundamental genesis of how Bitcoin was born. It was born as the currency for the internet. Of course, we have evolved much, much more from what that was intended to be. There are many more things that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are doing today, fundamentally redefining how we build businesses on the internet. And what I think we will see is that every single business that was built being fundamentally rewritten, both from the way it is transacted, the way it is built, the way it is governed. Like Prasad said, all your emails today are with Google, right? So they can pretty much do whatever they want. If they decided to ban you, they can actually ban you, which actually happens, right? It can never happen if it was built on something like a blockchain-based platform. And we will see some more and more of these coming out, and we will address some of those as we go along. But fundamentally, I think that this whole revolution is it is a revolution in many ways, and it will rewrite every single business that was there before. Just like how the dot-com revolution rewrote every business that was there over time.
Wow, the evolution of a revolution. Awesomely put, Prithvi. And I see a very positive vibe and that light in your eyes about this technology. But really, with it, we'll talk about this in today's show. So last but not the least, welcoming Sunil Ji on today's platform. Please share what you think about this new upcoming idea, system, whatever we call it. But how do you feel about it? What is your gut feeling about Bitcoin and other stuffs?
I think it's worth looking at the history of money itself and what is trust. So we kind of have a context as to how we've been transacting and why this digitalization is important, right? Once upon a time, we used to sell chickens and cows, and I have a few chicken and I want some rice, I'll get some rice. And it's not a very convenient mechanism to transact between people or to exchange value between people. And over time, kings and others came up and said, you know what, I have a gold coin or a silver coin. Why don't you transact and use this piece of metal as a representation of value, right? And people said, oh, that's a little bit more portable. Let me transfer value through that. And then you had lots and lots of value being transferred in ships, and pirates were attacking them. And people said, hey, you know what? Why don't you keep your gold in the vault in England? We'll give you a little piece of paper, and that's an IOU. You come in here, and whenever you want the gold, it's going to be here. So that kind of became the gold-backed money, or the paper money kind of came out. So we've been on this evolution of money and this exchange of value. And over time, we have created a lot of monies. Gold-backed currency from dollar was backed by gold. Then in the 70s, early 70s, US was abusing the backing of gold that they had, and everybody else wanted their gold back. So then we stopped backing that. Right, and then we basically started backing against petroleum, and it became petrodollar. Right, so people have been trusting on certain central parties to have the value be protected. Now we have seen in this world today, and 2008 was very similar to what happened last year, where the governments were issuing lots and lots of currency, which was based on in the US dollar, we say, in God we trust, right? So we really are trusting one entity or group of people to say, hey, this is the value. And we saw what happened in India. We saw what happened in Cyprus, where the value suddenly disappeared. And this has happened in other countries like Venezuela and Rhodesia, and many other countries this has happened. So when any entity controls something at that kind of level, historically speaking, going back to Roman Empire and before, they abused it, right? So in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, we don't know whether it is male or female, it's a group of people, it's an anonymous group of people. They said, we don't really trust one entity. We really want to be able to trust the people as a group. And they came up with this idea that let us have this distributed mechanism where we use computing, and in math, we trust is their logo. So to share this idea of value. And that is how Bitcoin came along. And that was the first modern digital currency, or the idea behind digital currency. It may not have reached its potential or may not, but that has kind of created this idea of blockchain, which we are very excited about, especially at CopperWire. We're looking at multiple use cases where that underlying trust can be leveraged for many, many applications. So this is an exciting space.
Yes, it is exciting. And the way you said in maths we trust, that was very super exciting. In maths we trust. It's the first time I heard it. It was very, looking ahead. Let me tell you, we have a lot of audience connected globally. We have Shweta Sinha from Iowa. We have Dr. Shipra from Germany. We have Prachi from Canada. From India, we have Rashmi Sinha. We have Manjari ji from Bay Area, who's appreciating Baby Sir's comment. And we also would like to introduce Ria from India. We have Banshidhar Shukla ji from India, Veer Bahadur Chauhan ji, and many people. I'll be Meera Nair ji, and also I would like to have the recent comment from Mr. Sham Singh. So he's asking what's the definition of money in modern world. We'll be talking about all this and much more, right? So coming back to our scene, we have now some questions which are very pertinent and sent by our audience. So let's talk about one by one. The first question that has been put is difference of internet and the Bitcoin revolution. We know that both of these are revolution, kind of the field of their own. But what's the difference? We have seen that internet made it big. Although Bitcoin is appreciating in value, $35,000 for the initial value. And also the way the next generation is trusting on it. But the impact is not felt in the market. We don't yet see blockchain as a visible product. So what makes it? And I would like to ask this to Prasad Raje. What do you think? Why is the impact not felt? Although the money leverage is happening big times.
Yes, so I think people are trying to imagine that cryptocurrencies will come onto the scene like the internet and the web came onto the scene in the 90s. Look, these are different revolutions. We cannot. These are apples and oranges. So just to recap for everyone, the internet fundamentally, or the browsers more specifically, was a user interface revolution. It made things simpler for people to access. It made information easier to access. You just needed to click. You don't need, you had visual information presented to you in the browser for the first time. And then this thing evolved into doing everything in the browser. Of course, mobile phones and wireless networks and came on, made it happen that you are seeing the internet used as it is today. But fundamentally, it was a user interface revolution. In the case of crypto, it's a more abstract revolution. We're talking about concepts that are more abstract, as we just discussed here earlier. We're talking about the concept of decentralization. We're talking about the concept of money. And really, fundamentally, there are two things we should separate when we think about it. We should think about the core constructs that are new, which are definitely here to stay. Let me tell you, no matter what the speed of it is, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are never, ever going away. Never, ever going away. It's because as long as there are computers in the world that can do computations, and as long as there's a network that connects these computers, you will have cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin keep running. That's the whole point. No entity can actually kill the existence of any of these cryptocurrencies by external power, especially the largest one, Bitcoin, because it is backed not by any single entity, but backed by the computations being done by actually millions and millions of computers around the world to create the Bitcoin blocks and have incontrovertible transactions, right? So these are, the short answer to your question is, this is a revolution in progress. and and there are many other layers coming on top of it. So Bitcoin, if you think about it, is sort of the original. This is sort of the fundamental. There are other cryptocurrencies called Ethereum, which have a much more programmable construct, which come up with higher level constructs that allow for more complex things to exist. Things like what you're thinking about as NFTs, non-fungible tokens, or ERC20 coins and tokens that exist on the Ethereum blockchain. We can talk more about that. But hope that answers your question, Archana.
Yeah, I would like to have a sequel, and I'll welcome all the panelists to jump in. My question was not just existence or survival. I want to make it big. Why does it not breathe and make it like the impactful as we hoped it to be someday, one day, today rather? But it's existing. I understand, but and also I know that it will never go away. But how, why, when will it make the big number, big name that we all hope it for?
Yeah. So let me give a little historical perspective. I think that will actually help to see what will trigger the next wave of the adaptation of this Bitcoin or the blockchain. If you look at internet as an internet actually existed since the early 80s. Because in fact, when I was working in the mid 80s itself, right, only a group of high-tech companies and research institutes actually participated in the internet that existed pre-1993. Pretty much like engineers and research people and universities, those are the only ones. And what was the killer application at that time? It was email. Email was the primary application. And as Prasad just mentioned, the user interface was extremely clunky, extremely unusable. So now, if I even tell this, that such an internet was adapted only from few thousands of people, it is almost laughable compared to billions of people who are using it today, right? So the first change that happened was this browser with a simple user interface and ability to actually upload, download, whatever that people wanted to do. And over the next 6 years is where a lot of the underlying platforms that was required to make this browser to become really useful. So it took almost like 6 years, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's financials, or any other kinds of applications. A lot of middle layer had to be developed. Internet itself had to scale and to become reliable and rugged and trustable. All the security aspects. So a lot of these things had to evolve from the time the browser actually came into existence in 1993, and it took almost like 6 to 8 years, right, before we started to see Amazons of the world or the search engines of the world and those kind of things, which is what a common man really started to appreciate the internet. So I believe today we are in that phase, in that 6-year phase that happened during the internet. Maybe we won't take 6 years this time, but a lot of the underlying technologies to develop and to make this platform rugged and usable is what is being developed right now. And I think once that starts to happen, right, you will see more and more customer-friendly or user-friendly kind of applications that people will start to appreciate, and that is what will help trigger the adaptation of this technology. So the second point I wanted to make is, as an analogy, somebody asked this question, and as an analogy, all of us actually have some sort of a alternate currency today. So many of us are members of airlines, right? Whether it's United Airlines or American Airlines, and then they give these mileage points. And when you get these mileage points, how do you use the mileage points? You go back to United Airlines and either you can buy another flight ticket using the United Airlines mileage point, or they'll give you a selected, limited set of things that you can buy using these mileage points, right? You've already paid the money to buy your ticket early on, but that's what resulted in United Airlines or American Airlines giving you those mileage points. And you use those mileage points to go buy within their own umbrella to buy things that they have put on the shopping list. So in some form, all of us are already participating in this alternate currency. But what I think this Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are doing is to expanding this into really global, where people can seamlessly move from country to country without having to depend on any one national currency.
Yes, so Archana, I'd like to add one point, and my view is it's not really the technology or the UI that has kept adoption at this point, and that's my view. So people are smart today. If I gave you a smartphone 20 years ago and said, hey, you know what, configure the Wi-Fi on this device and create a WhatsApp account and start using it, it would all seem very alien to other people. Are very smart. They figure out all these things, right? In fact, I mean, there are over like 50 million crypto users today. So it's not it's something alien. The biggest thing that has actually kept mainstream adoption away is actually the regulatory pressure that has come around this industry. In fact, from the middle of 2018 till the middle of 2020 was considered one of the darkest days for crypto. It was called the nuclear winter because the governments came and put a nuclear bomb everywhere. And because for obvious reasons, right? Like BV sir said, the whole crypto industry is challenging central banks directly, right? It is challenging the very fundamental power structure that exists, and there should be retaliation of some sorts. But that has kind of subsided and gone away. In fact, everybody knows India for the first time in 3 years rescinded a ban that came into effect in August of 2018. Right, so we can see that. I mean, we have moved many miles from where we were. So for the last 3 years, for example, in India, if you said the word crypto, you were thrown out of the door straight away. No startup was willing to build crypto-based applications. No enterprise was willing to touch a blockchain company. Right, so it was as severe as that. So regulatory pressure has actually been one of the strongest reasons to keep it away. But obviously, in the last 6 months itself, we have seen the value of all cryptocurrencies grow at least 5-fold, right? So, in terms of the total value of the ecosystem. And we will continue to see this evolve. Governments will have to finally come to terms because, as everybody here agreed, it is here to stay. There's no shying away from it. It is definitely here to stay. What best we can do is to figure out how we can coexist or co-adapt to this new world, so to say.
Wow, that was very well said. Thank you so much. And I welcome Piyush Malikji from ASEI, and he has commented that great job on organizing this Bitcoin discussion. So welcome Piyush to this forum, and we move forward. And as you said correctly, Prithvi, that we certainly have some fear, some apprehensions in mind that why exactly the ban was put. For the first time, RBI, I had so much of fear of this alternate system coming into being that they put a ban which was recently removed. But thinking about more money laundering, security issues, and also talk about dark web, where Bitcoin has become the medium to pay for drugs and maybe guns. I mean, how do we enforce law in such conditions where we cannot even track the transactions as they are outside of the traditional financial system? And, as we know, anyone can start it with bogus accounts and taking money with promises. Like talk about Amit Bharadwaj and the Gain Bitcoin whole concept, the whole idea of Amit Bharadwaj taking 200,000 crores and, having such a big scandal, fraud in first of all. So let's go ahead and talk about the second theme that I have in mind and people have been really wanting to know about it. What is the fundamental value of Bitcoin? Is it a sound money, like we can transact and buy bread and butter from our next door using this, or is it just a mean of investment or any other form? What is the future avatar of it? And let me put it, what is the current best fit to explain Bitcoin? Can we do transactions? Is it just for investment, or is it something that we want to make big bucks with, like as NextGen puts it, that a raise in your investment? What exactly should we see Bitcoin with? Let me put it to Prithvi and see how he thinks about it.
Yeah, so first of all, let's understand what is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin obviously started as a currency, but cryptocurrencies today have evolved into being something a lot more than what currency is meant to be, right? So I think Sunil earlier briefed as to how currency has evolved as a means of social trust, right? So if we agree that this is a medium of exchange, then that becomes what do you say, something that we can transact with. And that was the original idea of Bitcoin. But yes, like every other currency, I mean, currencies do appreciate and depreciate in value. I mean, I'm sure you know what the rupee was worth 20 years ago as against what it is today, what it was worth 50 years ago as against what it is today. So every currency also fluctuates. In the case of Bitcoin, it is extremely high and it's extremely volatile, right? So it's just like any other currency. You know how the Zimbabwean dollar went from being worth something to almost next to zero, right? So the value of every currency fluctuates. And therefore, the value of Bitcoin also fluctuates, albeit more volatile. So it is probably incorrect to simply think of it as an investment destination, though it is tradable, just like any other currency is. By the way, there are a lot of people in the world who simply trade currencies as a means of making money. But yeah, so Bitcoin is also one of them. And given that it's not regulated, it's much easier to do so. Whereas, let's say, for example, in India, you cannot trade with currencies unless there is you have government approvals to do so. So, from that sense, it's not only a currency; it is kind of become a store of value, because its value is not decided by a central bank, and nobody can demonetize it someday. No, at least no single person can do it. And today, it has evolved into something called governance tokens, where you simply holding the token, which Ethereum is doing today, called Ethereum 2, which is it is moving from simply being a token to a vote in the system. So basically, it's not only a means of currency and an exchange, a store of value, but it also becomes like a share in the ecosystem that you can vote into, that you can give your proposals into, and everybody can vote. So you can collectively decide what is the future of this ecosystem. Right. So we will see a lot of these evolving over time. But the essence being that it started as a currency, and like any other currency, it has become a store of value. But now it has evolved from being these two into something more. So Ethereum, like Prasad was saying earlier, has become a smart platform in itself, which means it's like smart money in many ways, which other currencies cannot do. And NFTs, for example, are again a fundamental revolution in the way the same type of currency is handled in a very, very different way. And we will see all these evolving more and more over the next 5-6 years.
Thank you. I look forward to it. And I mean that so be it. As we talk about the functionality, the future, let's talk more about philosophy, vision, and the future of it. So as in the current market, they say it's not exactly medium of transaction, but more as a risk investment. As you said, it's volatile. But we also see its usage I should say, in foreign fund transfers. Very easy to operate when you have to transfer money across the border. So it's suiting some of the fields like real estate, foreign fund transfers, and also its usage is more in. So let me remember PayPal, who was actually against it at one point of time. That's world's largest digital payment company, and they introduced crypto last November. That was exciting, and it shows that people are gradually opening up to it. Also, RBI, who had the ban, removed it. And talk about JP Morgan. Let me actually take the story. JP Morgan told it to be a fraud scheme, something less scandalous. But during bull days of crypto, now they're changing gears and opening up. So when all the money market, money section people, and more so ever government and banking sectors are also improving, encouraging this, what stops it? Why is it not taking off? So our next question from the audience has come as, what's the future of Bitcoin? Like, how do we look it up as? Should we have a multi-species ecosystem or monopoly? What's the new financial system? Crypto. What's NFT? We just heard about the word NFT, but I'm a little bit confused about how do we and where do we implement that? So let's go to Sunil and ask, what does he think about it? Welcome, Sunil ji, and we would love to hear your opinion about it.
Thank you. I think it's important to realize that we are in the middle of a revolution, right? And it's a digital revolution. And we are talking about digitalization of money. And money has been something that has been the rights of governments to issue. And it is not at all surprising that it's a threat to the governments and central banks who have the rights to issue money. And whenever you have a new revolution, the first thing that people say, it's not going to be anything, right? The next thing is, once they realize it's a threat, they start attacking it. Or it's only going to be used for drugs and this and that, etc. I mean, they said the same thing about internet too. Okay. And then once you realize that that's not a wave that's going to stop, then you're going to kind of figure out, how do I join that? Okay. Before you get to mainstream. So
that's true. That's true.
And the governments are all trying to figure that out. And the funny thing was when JP Morgan CEO went out on TV and said Bitcoin's a fraud, the same day in the San Francisco office, they were running a blockchain conference. So they were also studying this. They needed to buy time to say, okay, what do I do? Because the banking sector is very powerful. And they have been doing a lot of transactions are controlled by the banking sector. So this could potentially undermine that business if they don't figure out how to play in this digitalization of the world. So Bitcoin was, I call it version 1.0. And like Prasad talked about, Ethereum will be version 2.0. We don't know whether Bitcoin is going to be the one that lasts, or Ethereum, or suddenly when people figured out that they could also create their own money, we had thousands of coins that came along when people started publishing their own money. So fundamentally, the value of money is only based on who is willing to accept your money. Okay, whether it meets people's expectations. Okay, is it portable? Is it private enough for people to transact? Even though people think that Bitcoin is anonymous, it's not. It's like an internet IP address. If you know the IP address and you know that you send that Bitcoin to somebody to transact, and now you know who you send it to, you can see everything they transacted. Right? The bank account information is now public into the rest of the world. Not only IRS, the rest of the world knows what all transactions you've been holding, how much money you have in the bank account, etc. So the people who want anonymity or privacy, they will not stay with Bitcoin. They'll move to new protocols like Monero and Ghost protocols and other protocols where they want privacy, where they can transact. And the governments will not be able to control those protocols. So this is a evolution in play. You can expect to have digital coins from every single government. China is probably leading the race, but other countries are looking at central bank digital currencies because digitalization is inevitable. Which one is going to win? Well, we don't know. Every country had their own currency. Some became more powerful than others. I mean, Indian rupee was, you could get $1 for 3 rupees at the time of independence. So, yeah, multi-species is inevitable, but it is also going to be a few that will become dominant. And dominance is really based on acceptance of people.
I agree with you, and totally we'd love to hear other people and their viewpoints. What do they think about it? But the audience is suggesting about, they have mentioned about the bank failures of Yes Bank, PMC Bank, Lakshmi Vilas Bank in the traditional mode. The conventional banking structure really failed many times. And about Bitcoin, how do you know your customer, what they call KYC? How do you know your customer? And do we just invest as a diversified portfolio? And they would like to know, is it a risky investment? Should we only do when we can afford to lose it? And why do we invest when it's considered very volatile? So these things are coming from the audience side. If anybody would like to take these questions, would love to hear from you.
It's a highly speculative investment, right? It is a hedge against the currencies issued by central banks. So which one's going to go up? Is it going to go to $100,000, $1 million per Bitcoin? It's all based on speculation, right? The use of that as a exchange of value is not that high, because if I have a lot of value sitting on something that changes and I can't go buy bread with it, then it's not as useful for me. So there is a risk-return equation to it. It's almost like buying a piece of art, which is why this NFT conversation comes into play. Well, why do I buy Bitcoin? Why don't I buy the art piece that other people want? Right? So it is speculative at this point in time, but it is also a hedge against currency failure.
So one thing, sorry, I'll just add my thoughts on this. So one is, of course, it's like any other investment, like he said, art. Looking at Bitcoin as an investment is like any other investment. Today, let's say, for example, you buy Infosys shares with your money. You can't buy bread with Infosys shares, but that's perfectly okay, right? At the end of the day, it is meant as an investment. And yes, stock value is also speculative to some extent, though there are underlying principles as to how they're derived. But at the end of the day, yes, it is extremely volatile. And should people invest? I mean, my advice would definitely be to try. Okay, I mean, we should definitely not get left out in this race. In fact, I give this example to most enterprises today, saying that the people resisting today are very similar to how, the computerization of nationalized banks. If you remember how that revolution happened and how long that took, at the end of it, finally, imagine the banks that computerized lost. They probably lost out completely in that race, right? And it's going to be very similar. So it's definitely good to at least be acquainted, but definitely not, consider this as an investment destination, so to say.
So, Archana, I'd like to add a few things here, right? So, if I'm what is known as, I would call myself a Bitcoin factualist. So we've been talking about the great future. Let's also understand where we are today. Let's be very clear. For one, Bitcoin is in my view not a currency as earlier described today. Why? Because it is not backed. Today, currencies are backed by entities. By today's definition, nobody will redeem a Bitcoin for you as a central entity. You can trade it with other people, and that causes its value to happen. It's a highly liquid, highly tradable entity. To the extent of $35 billion a day in Bitcoin are traded. So it's a very liquid asset you can certainly have. However, are people going to be willing to have their salaries? If your salary is going to be X $1,000 a month, will you be willing to take that salary in the form of Bitcoin? Because what happens tomorrow? Your rent still has to be paid in some $1,000 a month, or your food has to, your car payments, whatever. If the value of your salary goes up and down relative to what you have to pay with the world you have to live in, then it doesn't become a medium by which pricing can happen. It cannot be a price sheeting medium. A company that sells its software for, say, $100,000. If it says today, well, I'll price it at 2 Bitcoin. Well, tomorrow the value of Bitcoin could go to $30,000. Are they going to be okay with receiving less value? So in that sense, currencies get value because of the daily transactions you can do with them, and also because of the stability, the relative stability of those currencies. Get into trouble when they lose stability suddenly, and entire society's normal mode of operation gets disrupted in a dramatic way. So currencies get into trouble for that reason when stability cannot be provided. But fundamentally today, Bitcoin is not stable. Everybody knows that. If anybody can just look at the graph of the value of Bitcoin, it is not a stable thing. And as far as the number of transactions are concerned, let's be clear. The world's transactions are not going to go onto the Bitcoin blockchain per se. Why? Because of the nature of the blockchain, it's about 250,000 transactions per day is all you can have, and those are on the blockchain itself. So there's going to have to be 250,000 transactions a day are like happening per second in our financial system right now, in the rest of the system. So there's going to have to be something that builds on top of the so-called layer 2 technologies that assume the foundation of Bitcoin and use something else to actually perform transactions. But we still have to solve the price stability problem before everything gets priced in Bitcoin. So that's sort of a long-term. So that sort of goes back to answer some of your question. Why isn't everything happening with Bitcoin today? Well, this is part of the reason. Today, of course, as Sunil said, everybody recognizes there's something here. And it's an investment. So it's like buying Google stock or Amazon stock or Tata stock. But when you buy stock in a company, you're buying into the idea of a future either growth because it can be sold, or because of discounted cash flows, because of the profits that the company can return to its shareholders. In the case of Bitcoin, there's no such thing. There's no entity giving you a future value. So it's complex. The value is in what people ascribe to it. And the number one thing Bitcoin has done is created scarcity. It has created a fixed maximum number of Bitcoin that will ever be mined. And what we are seeing today is the result of tremendous amount of interest in this new thing, chasing a finite supply. It's standard classic supply demand model that's driving up the price that you see today.
Thank you very much. I guess the ability, yes, sir, please.
I just wanted to basically add more to what Prasad and Sunil said, and Prithvi. Most major cities today have started to accept some form of cryptocurrencies. It's actually fascinating to see, like when we were traveling in New Orleans a couple of years ago, as we were walking around the main shopping downtown sort of an area, literally every one of the store in that New Orleans, that French Quarter, they were all like accepting Bitcoin. I was pretty surprised. This is almost like 3 years ago. And a friend of mine who just came from India, youngster, a next generation, he did not come with any currency other than Bitcoins. And it was all on his phone. And this was absolutely unbelievable for me to accept the fact that somebody has traveled from one country to here, and then he was going to many other places. Absolutely, he was unperturbed with the fact that, he was never worried that he was not carrying a US dollar or he was not carrying a EU or anything. He was just carrying the Bitcoin, and he knew exactly where to buy and where to sell, and then get the local currency for that use, or even use that to actually get into a hotel or buy food or whatever that he wanted. He knew exactly how to do that. So just like anything else in this world, adoption of these kind of new products, new technologies, you will always have these early adapters. And more of these early adapters, both from user point of view as well as from the stores that do the business. I mean, if you go back like 10-15 years ago, a lot of places did not accept American Express, right? They only accepted maybe 1 or 2 credit cards. So this is the same thing. And as proliferation of this increases, as more and more people are asking for it, then more and more stores will start accepting these modern currencies, and that becomes the norm of life. So which means as we travel or we go to different places, we don't need to carry that local currency. We can just go with this one virtual currency and accomplish whatever we wanted. Of course, as Prasad said, the stabilization of the currency is very important. You cannot be worried about the fluctuation. One day it is trading at $58,000, another day it trades at $35,000. That's very scary, right? So I think that's what prevents common people to start to use currencies like this. But early adopters are already moving in that direction. And as you see more and more adoption from these early adopters, it starts moving to the next level, just like anything else.
So just another quick anecdote, Archana, is 100% of the service providers and vendors in the crypto industry accept only crypto. Okay, so nobody wants a wire transfer at all anymore. So be it developers, advertising agencies, anyone. Okay, so they purely transact in crypto. Yes, the common man still needs time to adopt for whatever reasons, but so the rest of the crypto industry is already doing it. And as always, we always offer to pay in crypto to anyone who provides, let's say, us services in some ways or the other. And 100% of the times, they have always come back 6 months later and said, we should have accepted crypto because the value has doubled or tripled, or maybe sometimes even gone 10 times, right? So, but of course, they can't deal with the volatility on both sides, right? So it could have gone 1/10 also, which obviously is not good enough. But it's interesting that everybody has come back and said, you know what, I should have taken it that day. I should have taken Bitcoin when you offered me for the services.
I agree. It's a very risky decision of to do it, not to do it. It's a stage of metamorphosis where the pupa is turning into butterfly. But from the stage of egg to pupa to butterfly, it takes time and one never knows. So it is an early investor's decision. So, but I would also like to tell you that we are joined by many more on the audience side. Bhim Singh ji, Priyanka Singh ji from Doha, Qatar. From Bay Area, we have Sunita Verma ji, and they're commenting big time. So thank you so much for being with us on Srijani platform. So we talk about investment trends with Jagdish ji after this small message, because we would like to know how money is flowing and where it is going with what reasons. So here's... Those were a couple of events we had done in Srijani on the past, and we're looking forward to more and more technical events. Thank you so much for giving time on this Saturday morning to come on Srijani platform and talk about Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain. And now we'll be talking about the investment trends. The main thing, the money goes to a certain direction for a specific reason, and we would like to know if this is a good time for us to do it or not to do it. Welcoming BVJ on Srijani to listen, to know more about the investment trends in this section.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the venture investments, as you mentioned, is a great way to know the trend of where the industry is heading towards. And although personally I've not invested in any Bitcoin companies at this point of time, I am associated with a few companies in the Bitcoin, in the blockchain space. And interestingly, the real funding for the blockchain companies started somewhere around 2018. The real big movement started around 2018. And then because of all this confusion, the investment sort of dropped in 2019 and 2020 to some extent. But this year, the momentum has picked up, especially because Coinbase had a great exit, and that has given liquidity. And there is a lot more clarity in many of the problems that are being solved in the market, and also potential adoption as well of blockchain technologies and, of course, you know, cryptocurrencies and so on and so forth. So this year, the first 2 quarters, Q1 and Q2, there was almost like $6.5 billion has been invested into blockchain and cryptocurrency kind of companies. So obviously, you know, where are the investments going towards? So a lot of the investment is going towards building the infrastructure that is required for this currency to, this technology to provide the stability, the user interface, the security, you know, scaling, all of that. This is what the example that I took earlier, where when internet came in, the first 5 to 6 years, where the investments were made to build the underlying different aspects of it. So that's where a lot of the investments are going towards. The other investments are going towards is, you know, this terminology that you use called the NFT, right? The NFT essentially stands for non-fungible tokens, which is the digital assets that people can actually trade. So there is a lot of excitement, a lot of interest that's going on. In fact, this morning, while I was browsing through an Indian newspaper, I saw the famous actress Sunny Leone in India. She has her own cryptocurrency. And a Silicon Valley blockchain technology cryptocurrency company actually has partnered with her. And then apparently in the last month or so, even Amitabh Bachchan created his own cryptocurrency. So our own Prithvi, right, is creating two different cryptocurrencies. One in the cricket, am I right, Prithvi?
That's correct, BV. Cricket has already launched. We are announcing Zollywood, as it's called, for the Indian
next
film
one
industry.
that he's doing is the Bollywood.
Wow.
So
he just created this cricket cryptocurrency, and it seems like that has been well received. So he already has like 125 or so cricket stars who have signed up to trade photographs, to trade special moments of the pictures that could be used as collectibles by the end users. And you can use that currency, right, the cricket currency that he's creating, to buy cricket related things worldwide. And the same thing he's doing with Bollywood as well. So that is another place where a lot of the investment is actually going towards, which is kind of fascinating to see. And then the other one is in the gaming industry, right? So there is significant investment that is going towards. And one of the well-known venture capitalists, he actually made a statement. There is this thing called Babe Ruth, who is a very famous baseball player in America. And this guy was known, he used to play for New York Yankees. And this guy was known for hitting the home runs. So this venture capitalist gave this Babe Ruth as an analogy that for you to hit good number of home runs, you also have to have quite a few of strikeouts. So meaning the guy will get out, but at the same time, he will also have a big hit, right? More number of big hits when you make those investments. So if you're trained well, if you're practiced well, if you do your things well, then you have a good chance of hitting more number of home runs. But during the process, you will also have more number of strikeouts. So the same way, I think if you invest well in the right kind of entrepreneurs and right kind of ideas, then you have a greater chance of hitting more number of home runs similar to this Coinbase. Of course, during the process, you will also lose in some of the companies. So I think that is how the investment world operates. But the good sign is that almost $6.5 billion was invested just in 2 quarters in blockchain and cryptocurrency related technologies.
That was great piece of information, Baby. You said very informative about do we do it or don't we do it, and what the future will be bringing. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that comes to mind is UI friendly? Is this system, is this technology UI friendly? That's what the audience is wanting to know about. We are over time, but very shortly, if somebody can help me answer, because I remember some sample portal called CoinSwitch Kuber, which is coming up big time in India for usage of UI tech, but I'm not very sure exactly. So you being the experts of this domain can help me. How is the UI being, acting up so far? Is it like really friendly, unfriendly, and how we can improve upon it? Anybody would like to take the plunge?
So real quick, I can address that, Archana. So a couple of things. One is at some level, we talked about how this is decentralized. That means, today people are used to, they're centralized. They go to their bank account. They have a password. If they forget their password, they can call the bank and say, hey, this is me. This is really me. They can prove it and they can recover, et cetera, et cetera. In the case of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, et cetera, you are in charge of your wallet. So you have a great responsibility and the power, which cannot be taken away, because you third party cannot take away that power. So you have to be the keeper of your password, the core passwords of your account. You have to keep them, and only you keep them, so that no one can take away the ability for you to transact on the blockchain. But at the same time, then if you have that ability, you also have the responsibility to store it and keep it carefully. Now, then, well, do you trust a piece of software to keep it carefully? If you have not 100 rupees, but if you have $10 million in an account, how will now, there's a great responsibility, and who would you trust? So there's a little bit of a conundrum here, right? So therefore, if somebody asks, what is a wallet? It's literally like as if you were carrying your entire amount of your bank account in your wallet, in your hand. And so it is great power, but it's also great responsibility. So that sort of is a conundrum. So many, much software is going to be done to make this easy. At the same time, you can sort of keep the control yourself as well. These problems will be solved over time, but this is a fundamental on-ramping problem that we have.
And to add to that, if you forget your wallet, the person who has a lot of money sitting in the wallet dies. It goes with it.
It's gone.
Nobody can get at it.
It's gone. Yeah. If you lose your password, nobody can help you. Literally, you can have $10 or $10 million or $10 billion locked in your passwords, and nobody can do anything about it. Literally, nobody can.
And the second, if somebody else knows your password, then they own your account. This is how it goes, right? So these are some of the user interface problems to be dealt with. So how do you get trust in a world there is no central party giving you trust? And those tools need to be developed.
It's not a bug, it's a feature. That's how blockchain is designed. Unfortunately so, but yes, there are always two sides. It's always a double-edged sword, right? Yes, but with great power comes great responsibility.
And your trade-off is, if you give your keys to a bank or a Coinbase or somebody else, they'll make it easy for you, but now they have access to your wallet. So we trust the banks to give us something, but then we give up some control. So we will evolve in the next few years. A lot of these tools will come in. The user interface and user experience will become acceptable enough for it to be accepted. And which of these currency alternatives will become the most popular one? really depends on the user adoption of that.
I agree. I concur with that, that user adoption will based on how we intend to use it and the actual way that the usage will happen. Just one more question I cannot resist, and I hope we can answer this very quickly. Thinking about the security issues for money laundering and about the dark web, when, as I mentioned before, that the people are using it for drugs, guns, and for the usage it was not intended to be. They're having bogus accounts, having fraud cases, and everything involved therein. Anybody will help me understand how we can fight these issues with Bitcoin, crypto, or blockchain?
Yeah, Bitcoin is not a good place if you want to launder your money. Cash is a lot better. So always, in fact, you can look at the criminals and dark webs. They're always trying to stay one step ahead in terms of their technology. So when they come up with newer technologies and they find weaknesses in technology, they're going to try to do other stuff around it. So yes, people will use things, whatever is convenient. Before Bitcoin came along, it was stolen credit cards. Before it was all counterfeit currencies or black money, cash, or real estate. There's so many different innovative ways that people find to try and hide their money from other people.
Wow, this is good to know. And you being in field such a long, yes, Prithvi.
So unlike popular opinion, Bitcoin is probably the most transparent system that is out there, and that's why it's so powerful and that's why it's there. So let's say, for example, today it's very impossible for me to see what's happening in your bank account. But in Bitcoin, everybody can see what transactions are happening in every account that is there on the web. Okay, so which is why Sunil said it's very hard to launder your money there, because everybody knows exactly where the money is going, but they don't know who it is. So that's the problem. That's a different problem. But everybody can see every single transaction that is happening on the blockchain.
So
that is why it's powerful.
So that brings a good point before we say adios. So the know your customer, as you said, that we know the movement from point A to point B, but we don't know the endpoints. Is there any solution or suggestions of proving that?
The flip side of it, when we're looking for exchanging value and money is an exchange value, the trust that you have in the other party with a technology like blockchain, it is much more trusted than any single entity or counterparty controlling that. So this technology of blockchain has a lot more promise in being a transparent, trustworthy mechanism to exchange value.
Wow. Well said. And I totally believe on all that you've said, because I am hopeful. I am very optimistic about this technology. And besides all the hiccups and initial problems, one day, someday in the future, we'll have this, really making impact on it. And what more than RBI, the only body, the strong body that lost for the first time in court to crypto, to blockchain, to Bitcoins. And this gives us hope that this is so strong, so powerful. It just has to come to age one day. So before we say pranam, namaskar, adios, anybody wants to add something for our audience? Go ahead. Just a bye-bye message will be sufficient.
Join the revolution before it's too late.
Join, play with it, take the risk that you can afford to take, and experiment, learn, talk to people. There are going to be a lot of scams around too, so be careful. But at the same time, don't stay away.
I will advise every technical person listening to this to go learn about this technology. This is a must-have. You must learn. You must know about this technology at its depths. You should understand the Bitcoin protocol, and you should learn about the Ethereum blockchain, especially the EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine. You can start programming today. Go to and you can look at all the transactions, as Prithvi said. You can go and very interesting. You can go to Etherscan. And look at all the Ethereum transactions, every smart contract. People talk about NFTs. You can literally look at what's happening. So self-service, self-learning is a must-have for all technical people today.
Self-service, self-learning, wonderful motto. And as Prithvi said, Ashwini reiterates with you, join the revolution. Yes, we are in a strong motion. It's a movement in itself. So let's join that. And with that, we'll be winding up. We'll say namaskar, tata, namaskara, adios, pranam, kemcho to all our audience. But before that, we would love to tell you that the next topic we'll be introducing will be AI and ML, machine learning and artificial intelligence. Stay tuned with Srijani. We'll announce the date soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Biviche. Thank you, Prithvi. Thank you, Prasad. Thank you, Sunil, for sharing such insightful information. Priyanka Singh has a question, but we'll take her question on web, on Facebook Live page. Priyanka ji, please put your question. We'll try to answer it there because we're running out of time. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining today's Srijani platform. We'll see you again. Stay tuned. So, जैसे हम हमेशा कहते हैं, अपना ख्याल रखिएगा, स्वस्थ रहें, व्यस्त रहें